Story 1. I have many sensory issues, but being too warm will make all of them worse. If I am at a good temperature, I can handle overstimulation better. Therefore, heat is often the culprit. Story 2. I cannot deal with many people talking at once. I am usually a gentle person, but when everyone talks at the same time, I have to raise my hands, raise my voice, and ask them to be quiet and speak one by one. I usually chair it like a discussion at that point. I know it annoys some people, but I cannot process multiple voices at once. I also think it is rude. Story 3. Hand washing dishes. My sweater sleeve slowly falls down. I quickly use my wet, soapy hand to pull it back up, only for it to fall down again. I raise my arm to shake it back up, allowing a stream of suds to flow up my arm into my armpit under the sleeve. Story 4. A loud sudden noise. My dog barking out of nowhere. A child screaming suddenly. Something falling and crashing. It can take 20 minutes for my jaw to unclench, and every other sound afterward feels amplified in my head. Story 5. Loud piped-in music in a store like Best Buy makes it difficult for me to compare items or figure out what I need. It is similar to turning down the radio when I am lost or trying to park. I am 65 years old, but I have always had this issue. Story 6. I had to stop reading these comments because I immediately experienced sensory overload. My brain started giving sensations as if they were actually happening. Story 7. The natural fat and cartilage found in meat for human consumption. When my teeth press down and I feel rubbery or crunchy texture, I spit it out immediately and lose my appetite. Story 8. Whenever my parents had the television on loud in the morning, it made me dislike the sound of the news or sports commentators. Story 9. When reading these, part of me wants to say, "You all are just big babies, get over it." But then I remember I have an extreme aversion to cotton balls, and these are probably the equivalent of that. Story 10. Loud chewing, crunching, munching, chomping, slurping, glopping, licking mouth open or closed. It makes me want to climb out of my skin and has caused me to spend less time with certain individuals. Story 11. Someone saying the same word repeatedly, like when my boyfriend calls our cat's name every few seconds for 5 minutes while the cat just stares at him. I have to leave the room or I will snap. Story 12. When someone pulls something with their teeth, opening with teeth, chewing on shirts, and pulling them out, it kills me. Story 13. Synthetic woolen jumpers make me hyper-aware of my teeth, and I cannot explain it. It feels painful. Story 14. Multiple layers of clothing at once. Thankfully, I do not live where it gets very cold. I cannot wear anything besides undergarments beneath my clothing. For example, no shirt under hoodies or sweaters, just my bra. If I try, I immediately feel like I am being suffocated and start sweating profusely. Story 15. I am slightly hard of hearing. People who mumble are frustrating. There is nothing more annoying to me than someone speaking and I cannot understand a word they say. I dislike having to say, "I am sorry, what?" Just speak up or stand closer. Do not yell though. I can hear that clearly. I hate sharp sounds. When people try to talk to me from the next room and mumble, it bothers me immensely. Story 16. 2 or more loud conversations happening at once, like at a dinner table, make me want to crawl out of my skin. Story 17. When there are 2 different types of light bulbs in one area, such as a warm color temperature and a cool color temperature, especially if they are light-emitting diodes, it drives me absolutely crazy. Story 18. When there are more than 3 of the same number or letter consecutively, it is difficult to count how many there are without counting them individually with a pointer or some other method. Repeating patterns in general are tough for me, as I struggle heavily with bass guitar. Story 19. Sand or crumbs stuck to my feet. I am okay walking in the sand, but not okay with sand where it is not supposed to be. Story 20. A long strand of loose hair hanging off my shirt, lightly touching me, and then not being able to find it. Story 21. When things are too loud for me, such as television, movie theaters, or music in a restaurant. Wet socks or the bottoms of pants. I guess wet clothes in general. Being constantly touched, stepped on, jumped on, poked, or squeezed by my children. Story 22. Hand dryers in public bathrooms. That sound makes me feel like I am going insane, and I have to exit immediately. Story 23. I am a teacher, so I would say, crinkling empty water bottles, tapping on desks with pencils or kicking the legs of the desks with feet, entering a classroom late and being loud and disruptive while doing so. Story 24. Bad fabric. I cannot even elaborate. Some kinds of fuzzy fleece are okay, others are terrible, and I will not know until I touch them. It makes me want to wash my hands immediately when it is the bad kind. Story 25. Watching someone handle a bone-dry rag or paper towel with dry hands, as in not wet, is puzzling. I wish I could explain the issue, but that is all I know. Story 26. Hearing someone else brushing their teeth or filing their nails causes immediate distress to my body. Story 27. Shells in my lobster roll. In anything with egg. Walnut shell in my brownie. Spitting it out. No. Done. Get it away from me. I will refuse to order it again at the place where I found the shell, and I likely will not try to eat the dish somewhere else for another 6 months or so. Story 28. People talking to me when I am reading drives me insane. Also, my cat's meowing and hassling for breakfast. Story 29. Might sound ridiculous, but I loathe the feeling of stepping on grass with my bare feet. It is a sensory nightmare. A veterinarian told me when I was a child that parasites could drill holes through my feet and enter my body. So, yes, I have a horrible, irrational fear of coming into contact with bugs when stepping on grass barefoot. I do not trust that veterinarian. Story 30. Many things are related to feeling dryness, such as touching chalk, touching paper immediately after washing my hands, using warm towels straight out of the dryer, folding clothes right after washing my hands, drying off after swimming in a pool, ocean, or lake, putting on dry sandals, touching my towel with my feet, and biting into a dry marshmallow from Lucky Charms cereal. Dry. Story 31. High-pitched noises of most varieties. What can get me going instantly is the scrape of a fork on a glass plate. Story 32. I cannot handle the feeling of fabric bunching under my armpits. It really limits what I can wear in winter. Story 33. Water running down my arm after washing my hands while reaching for a towel. Dry flour or powdered sugar on my hands. Too many noises at once. Story 34. Paper. The texture makes my hands disappear. I can't even talk about it without involuntarily rubbing my fingers together. When I touch paper, I have to wet my hands on something afterward, lotion, condensation on a cup, or even licking my fingers if there's nothing wet nearby. I know it's gross. My books are all yellowed where my licked thumbs have warped the pages. Story 35. When my child cannot stop jumping, touching, screaming, and more for hours. Like, seriously, I love you, little man, but you were very annoying. Now get out of my bed. Story 36. Cardboard dragging across the floor hurts my ears, and I can feel the sensation in my teeth. Very strange. Story 37. I have to wear socks at all times. I can't stand bare feet. I'm always cold and still wear boots in June. The temperature has to be 28 degrees Celsius before I take my socks off, and I still don't like the feeling. Story 38. Voices overlapping mainly, followed closely by people brushing against me or touching me in crowded spaces. Story 39. I have a couple of issues. When audio is echoing, when there is an overly loud, repeating sound or phrase that continues without stopping. Story 40. 2 or more conversations at once in a room. Unless it is a big party, then the chatter turns into white noise. Story 41. Crowded spaces combined with loud noises instantly trigger my fight or flight response. I used to be able to attend live shows at local bars and venues, but as I got older and developed major burnout in my mid-20s, my tolerance for those types of spaces has been decreasing. Story 42. The grammar mistake in your post. Original poster. Just kidding, but in all seriousness. Hearing a crying child at any public event while the parents do absolutely nothing. Story 43. The feeling of tights on my skin or any sort of spandex material clothing. I loved dance as a child but absolutely hated the costumes. I really can only wear soft cotton clothing now. Story 44. Wooden pencils or thick lead writing on paper bother me. I carry mechanical pencils to give to people who write near me. Story 45. Someone who puts gauze in their mouth or chews on a napkin or paper tissue gives me the ick just thinking about it. People opening eating utensil plastic packages make a diabolical sound. Story 46. Styrofoam squeaking makes me feel queasy. Writing on a piece of paper without another piece of paper underneath it. Story 47. The thought of touching the foam used to make egg crate mattress toppers gives me chills. Story 48. Paper, chalk, children, loud children, microfiber, breathing, people eating food, sandpaper, metal rubbing on metal, milk of magnesia. Story 49. For me, it is the sound of a dog barking. Small or large, it makes no difference. Every nerve in my body tenses, and my mind immediately screams, "Run now." Story 50. Cotton balls. I feel incredibly uncomfortable at the thought of them, and it makes my teeth squeak. It is very disgusting. Story 51. When your fingernail touches cardboard just the right way, it feels awful and makes a terrible noise at the same time. Story 52. My worst one is being near someone eating something loudly, like chips. Cannot tolerate it. Additionally, I cannot stand the sound of typing on keyboards, especially if the keys are loud. Sometimes, it takes all my patience not to break someone's fingers over typing. Story 53. When you wear multiple layers of clothing and the layer directly on your body starts rolling up, as soon as I feel that happening, I stop everything to correct it. Otherwise, I become uncontrollably angry at everything in my immediate surroundings within a fraction of a second. Story 54. Chewing on an apple. Not the bite, but the chewing. I love apples. I eat a lot of applesauce. But chewing an apple is like nails on a chalkboard inside my entire head. I can feel it in my eyeballs. It is like the loudest television static you can imagine, but you can feel it too. Story 55. Any sharp clap or S sound in a song at a relatively normal or high volume pierces through me, and I hate it. Occasionally, even someone saying something with an S sound will cause the same effect and trigger a reaction. Story 56. Sight. High contrast in color or brightness is very annoying to me. Contrast in patterns is fine, but a single dot of bright light in a dark room or a vibrant color in a sea of dull colors is extremely agitating to me. Sound. If a sound is just loud enough that I can feel the vibrations in my ear canal but not in the rest of my body, it feels like someone is tickling the inside of my ear, and it makes me very uncomfortable. Similarly, people whispering in my ear is upsetting. Talking is fine, but whispering specifically makes me want to rub my ears away with the palms of my hands. It has been particularly aggravating recently because I keep getting ads for different things in the style of autonomous sensory meridian response. Autonomous sensory meridian response is the absolute worst for me. It either does nothing or makes me want to peel off my skin. Touch. I don't mind people touching me. I like being hugged, giving high fives, getting a pat on the back, and so on. But if it is constant or repetitive, I get very uncomfortable, especially if it is restrictive or from someone I don't know. For example, my wife knows I don't like cuddling very much. I can tolerate it for a bit because we are very close, but the moment I want to move my leg and can't, I feel extremely suffocated. Also, light touching is like sandpaper for me. I absolutely cannot stand it, especially hair ends and air from a fan or open car window. Smell. I hate candles. I cannot walk within 20 feet of a candle aisle in a store without getting extremely nauseous, hot, and getting a massive headache. Any strong smell will have the same effect. Taste. I don't have many problems with taste, but texture is a huge issue for me. I can't stand anything that is too hard. I don't like the texture of almonds. Anything that is solid enough to hold its own shape but soft enough to feel like liquid in your mouth, such as overcooked noodles, will make me gag. Story 57. People listening to their phones at high volume in doctors' waiting rooms. Nothing makes me angrier than the complete lack of sound etiquette in the United States. Story 58. Anytime two competing broadcast sounds occur simultaneously, such as two radios, the television, and someone's phone playing a TikTok. Story 59. There are so many. But corduroy, just the fabric, nothing against the bare, crushed velvet, and terry cloth, I hate with a burning passion. If I am going through a clothing rack and accidentally touch that fabric, that rack is done. Everything is contaminated by association. Sometimes my hair will not sit in the correct spot or weigh on my head, and it makes me want to rip everything out or just pull a Mulan and cut it short with the first sharp thing I find. There is something stuck under one of my nails, and I cannot figure it out. I have washed, scrubbed, used a file, and tried to get whatever it is out. But I cannot find it, and it is making me live in sensory overload hell. It would be fine if all my other nails had something too, but the unevenness is killing me. Story 60. Someone playing videos on their phone from a distance. The low speaker quality sounds sharp once you are a certain distance from it, such as when someone is in the next room. Story 61. Touching the bottom of my bare feet. It sounds strange, but I literally cannot handle it at all. It is gross, rough, and just disgusting. I have to wear socks at all times unless I am sleeping. Story 62. I love being in water, but I do not like water or any kind of liquid on me. I have always immediately wiped off kisses because it is sensory hell. Story 63. A wet sleeve or just a wet item of clothing in general usually means I have to change. I actually just changed because when I opened a bottle of water, it spilled on me and got my shirt wet right before going on a walk. Story 64. Touching something wet. Wet. Having wet on me. Stepping in it. All wet, such as from a shower, bath, or swimming, is fine. It is a tiny bit wet, sticky, or slimy that makes my skin crawl. Story 65. Slurping, smacking, repetitive sounds, knuckles cracking, raspberries, Robert F. Kennedy's voice, the smell of a restaurant kitchen, anything sticky on my hands, wet socks, too many people talking to me at once. Story 66. The sound of an impact drill putting a large screw into a stud is very loud, and I can feel it in every bone of my body. Story 67. Biting into something and feeling a texture that is not supposed to be there, such as a sandwich where the bread has gone mushy, a bite of green beans with part of a stem still attached, or oranges with that hair-like pith clinging to it. Food textures are a huge trigger for me. This is why I cannot eat meat. Story 68. Turning on a vacuum in a hallway that is a little too narrow makes me shudder and want to cover my ears. I have no idea why. Story 69. Certain fibers, especially cotton balls or anything in or around my mouth, I hate to even think about it. Story 70. Being in a crowd of people. I can be in a crowd, but I get really anxious and exhausted. I am also autistic with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, so that might be why. Story 71. I don't like it when someone or something touches my wrist. Feels like I shut down, and I can't stop cringing. Story 72. Really crowded stores. Those wooden forks and spoons. Shrieking, crying babies or toddlers. I need to get away as soon as possible. It hurts my ears so badly. I feel terrible about it, but it actually hurts. I don't understand why their parents just ignore it and make no attempt to help them settle. Story 73. The texture of nylon fabric or cordura fabric makes my skin crawl, with goosebumps and arm hairs standing on end. It has been that way my whole life. Story 74. Microfiber clothes are great for cleaning, but when dry, they attract dead skin on my hands. I cannot stand the feeling. And itchy jumpers, the thick wool kind. Story 75. Opening a cardboard box. The flash of one side scrapes against another flap. Yucky. Do not want to touch it anymore. Story 76. Crinkling plastic makes me completely unreasonable. The louder and more high-pitched it is, the worse I become. Story 77. Whistling. Magic erasers, which are like microfiber sponges, make me gag when I touch them. Having one appendage or side wet while the other is dry. If one hand is wet, I prefer to rub them together rather than dry the wet one. My feet being too cold or too hot, both of which are common occurrences. Someone or something touching me very gently. Hair and grass are the worst for this. Story 78. A particular group of people at my work go to the break room and start talking very loudly. Seriously, If I am sitting across the room with my music playing in both ears despite hearing loss and can still hear your conversation, you are being too loud. This irritates many people I work with. Many do not understand that as individuals, we should strive to not be interruptive or obstructive to those around us. Story 79. Wearing tight or formal clothing, such as a uniform, I cannot stand it. I have genuinely cried from overstimulation sometimes because the sensory overload can be so intense. Story 80. People are arguing. They may just be slightly raising their voices, but my mind is already projecting the escalation to a brutal level. I am essentially fast-forwarding the scenario to its most extreme and unpleasant conclusion, and that triggers my anxiety. Story 81. Old glass straight out of the dishwasher. Old glass in general really makes me cringe even thinking about it. Story 82. The sound of condensers in the frozen food aisle can cause me to have a seizure. Not all epilepsy is visually based. I am part of a very small population that is triggered by sounds. I wear earbuds when shopping. Story 83. Fork scratching on plate or teeth. Chewing sounds. Certain materials on fingertips or nails, such as jeans or microfiber. Story 84. How loud the music is at the Cheesecake Factory where everyone has to talk over it. It is overwhelming to me. Story 85. The sound of people chewing with their mouths open or mouth sounds in general and autonomous sensory meridian response. Why? I cannot scroll past autonomous sensory meridian response videos fast enough. I hate them so much. Story 86. Chewing any kind of orange-flavored gum gives me immediate headaches. I do not know why. Also, being on a trampoline for longer than 30 minutes eventually causes me headaches. Story 87. When my children argue, my sweet but wild toddler. Anytime there are two or more competing sounds and I need to assess which one needs my attention. Story 88. Creepy noises such as a fork scratching a plate, nails on a chalkboard, and styrofoam rubbing against styrofoam make me convulse. Story 89. Too many smells. Sweet food-scented lotions, soaps, candles, and more. I am very sensitive to smells. Story 90. When my hands are dry. When my hair gets stuck in my lip gloss and I have to pull it away. And the feeling of foam. Story 91. The feeling of certain fabrics makes my teeth hurt and is very much comparable to nails on a chalkboard for me. If I unknowingly touch one of the following, I need to rub my hand until the texture sensation goes away, if that makes sense. List of horrendous fabrics, especially if my hands are not wet. Velvet, corduroy, any type of towel, especially beach towels, denim, fabric vehicle upholstery, old-fashioned couches, carpeting. The most tolerable fabric for me is silk. I dislike that I do not understand this reaction, nor do I enjoy becoming viscerally and physically uncomfortable when I hear someone rubbing their hands on their pants, for example. Explaining it to people is difficult because it is hard to describe without feeling awkward. So usually, I try to separate myself or cover my ears if I can. Story 92. Someone rubbing their hands together. Rubbing my hands on most cloths or cloth surfaces. My hands feeling sticky. Any appliance beeping more than once when it is done. Something rattling somewhere in the car that I cannot find or stop. Story 93. A dog's whining. Of course, if they are hurt, it is different. I try to empathize, but recently I was dog sitting and the whining would wake me up throughout the night, causing me a lot of anxiety. I got no sleep. Similarly, when children make that whiny noise. Story 94. Crazy loud music with the expectation of socializing. An example would be going out to dinner with friends, but the restaurant's music is just way too loud. It is genuinely hard to regulate in those moments. Story 95. Walking in a store or riding on a bus where too many people are wearing different colognes and perfumes can be overwhelming. I also dislike walking in the detergent aisle of any store because it instantly gives me a migraine. Story 96. Strong fragrances. I cannot believe how desensitized some people are and will douse themselves in cologne or perfume. The same goes for homes that have candles and air fresheners everywhere. Story 97. People chewing, And there is this thing where people clench their hands in a certain way that makes a sound which causes my brain to vibrate as if it will burst while I retch in disgust. Story 98. Mostly repetitive sounds of someone else eating. Lips smacking, crunching, reaching into a bag and rustling around. Shaking the contents of a bag each time before reaching in. Excessive scraping of a bowl or yogurt container. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.